Did you know that Max Verstappen not only won in Austin, but completely changed the course of the 2025 World Championship? What seemed like a lost season for Red Bull is now a direct threat to McLaren. Before continuing, leave your opinion in the comments. Do you think Max can still be champion this year? Because what we'll see today shows that Verstappen not only won on the track, but also humiliated his rivals with a perfect strategy and a reborn car. Stay until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. In this video, we'll analyze in detail how Max Verstappen won the 2025 United States Grand Prix with a masterful performance that reopens the fight for the title. We'll talk about his technical mastery, the strategies that made the difference, and Red Bull's complete rebirth at a key moment in the season. The 2025 United States Grand Prix marked a turning point in the season. Max Verstappen arrived in Austin under the pressure of being unable to fail, with a Red Bull that had gone from a sleeping giant to a silent contender just beginning to wake up. Formula One was in a decisive phase. McLaren dominated the championship with impeccable pace and a young duo, Piastri and Norris, in top form, while Red Bull struggled to understand a car that wasn't performing as expected. But in Texas, everything changed. Verstappen didn't just win a race, he regained the confidence of an entire team that seemed to have lost its way. The gap in the championship was still significant. Oscar Piastri led solidly, Norris was close behind, and Verstappen was 40 points behind. However, the important thing wasn't the gap, but the trend. The Dutchman had reduced the gap by more than 60 points in just 4 Grands Prix, and he had done so with a determination reminiscent of his best years. Each recent victory seemed more calculated, more surgical, as if Red Bull had rediscovered the exact recipe that led it to dominate modern Formula One. The Circuit of the Americas represented much more than just a race. It was the perfect opportunity to see if the improvements made to the RB21 had really worked. From sprint qualifying to the main race, Verstappen made it clear that his car was at a completely different level than what had been seen in the first half of the championship. Straight-line speed, mid-corner handling, tire management, everything worked with precision. It was the first time in months that a comfortable, aggressive, and stable Red Bull had been seen. What happened in Austin wasn't a fluke. Verstappen's superiority was the result of a weekend executed with pinpoint precision, where every detail, from car setup to race reading, aligned to build total dominance. From day one, Red Bull displayed a perfect balance between power and stability, something not seen for months. The RB21 adapted to the demands of the American track as if it had been specifically designed for it. In the medium-speed corners, the car displayed impressive agility, while in the high downforce sectors, the car remained unfazed. Verstappen felt in absolute control, and that translated into confidence lap after lap. During qualifying, it was clear that the car had something special. Verstappen took pole with authority, without needing to squeeze the tires or search for a fast second lap. The Red Bull felt light, agile, and above all, efficient in the most technical sections of the circuit. In those linked corners where the slightest mistake can cost tenths of a second, the Dutchman seemed to float over the asphalt. What for other drivers was a delicate balance between grip and loss of traction, for Verstappen was a natural exercise in precision. Every corner entry was a surgical strike, every exit a demonstration of controlled power. The RB21's dominance was evident in the most demanding sections of the track. Telemetry data showed that Verstappen was faster in the slow and medium corners, where the car could apply power before anyone else. This was key, because these are the sections where the tenths that define a Grand Prix are earned. Furthermore, Red Bull's DRS once again proved to be the most efficient on the grid, allowing the car to maintain a higher terminal speed without compromising cornering. The aerodynamic work behind this advantage was monumental, especially after the updates at Monza and Singapore that restored the team's characteristic stability. This consistency was no coincidence. Red Bull had worked intensively on the car's thermal and aerodynamic management to avoid the degradation that had plagued them in previous races. In Austin, every parameter was under control. At first glance, Verstappen's victory in Austin seemed like a walk in the park, a demonstration of unwavering superiority. But behind that perfect image lay a much more complex race than what was seen on television. The Dutchman had to face a challenge that has been his weak point for much of the year: tire management and car balance on long runs. From the opening lap, Max felt the RB21 wasn't completely stable, especially at the rear, where the car tended to slide slightly on the entry to the slower corners. This feeling not only compromised traction, but also threatened to raise the temperature of the rear tires. Verstappen mentioned this on the radio several times during the first stage of the race. His communication with the engineer was constant, precise and calm. There were no complaints, only diagnostics. This was one of the big differences compared to previous races. The mature and calculating Max who analyzed the situation and adjusted his pace without getting desperate. He knew that every poorly managed corner could mean a temperature spike that would affect the car's overall performance. Therefore, his driving was much more fluid, without excesses, always seeking to maintain a controlled tire temperature and an aerodynamic balance that would allow him to maintain his pace. In that first phase, his goal wasn't to escape uncontrollably, but to build a solid but secure lead. He achieved this masterfully. While Norris lost time trapped behind Leclerc, Verstappen maintained a steady pace that allowed him to open up a gap of up to 11 seconds without damaging his medium tires. This was the exact point where management overcame speed. Max understood that a race in Austin isn't won with raw power alone, but with strategic intelligence and emotional control. The second stint was undoubtedly the most critical part. With the hard tires fitted, the RB21 showed a slight tendency to understeer in the fast corners, something that forced Verstappen to change his driving style. He started braking a little earlier and steering more gently, sacrificing a few tenths of a second each lap in exchange for stability and tire life. This adaptability is one of the reasons why his driving style stands out. He knows when to attack and when to hold on, without ever losing psychological control of the race. At the start, Verstappen knew he couldn't afford to make any mistakes. The medium tires offered less initial grip than Leclerc's soft tires, but much greater durability. His start was impeccable. He managed to maintain his position and, from the opening laps, began to build a steady lead that separated him from the chasing pack. As Norris became blocked behind the Ferrari, Max took advantage of every clean section of track to open up a gap, knowing that this cushion would be vital when the time came to stop. Red Bull wasn't looking for a chase race, but rather one of absolute control. The team precisely calculated the turning point, between laps 22 and 25. This was the perfect window to make the only stop. Verstappen entered at exactly the ideal time, with no traffic ahead and enough of an advantage to rejoin the track without losing position. It was a totally synchronized move between the pit wall and the driver. Every second in the pits counted, and the mechanics responded with a clean, error-free change that allowed them to maintain their lead. Norris, on the other hand, had to extend his first stint a few laps longer, ruining any chance of an undercut. What followed was a masterclass in race management. Verstappen controlled the pace on the hard tires, managing temperature and avoiding premature wear. His lap-by-lap performance was almost identical, an exercise in consistency that drove McLaren to despair, unable to find a point of attack. Neither degradation simulations nor hopes of a safety car changed the equation. Red Bull had executed the perfect plan and had done so without taking unnecessary risks. When Norris finally overtook Leclerc, the gap to Verstappen was already over 11 seconds. From then on, the Dutchman only had to manage the advantage. He didn't need to take risks or go for the fastest lap. His sole objective was to maintain the balance between pace and wear. Every decision on track was designed to sustain the initial strategic plan, without deviating even a millimeter. It was that tactical discipline that turned a demanding race into a demonstration of authority. Red Bull's strategy was an example of total coordination, technical analysis, risk calculation, and perfect execution. The impact of this victory goes far beyond the points earned. With only 5 Grands Prix remaining, the Dutchman has reduced the gap with Oscar Piastri to 40 points, completely reopening the fight for the world title. That difference, which just a few weeks ago seemed unattainable, is now a perfectly possible goal. Verstappen has cut more than 60 points since the end of the summer, and he has done so with a consistency reminiscent of his years of absolute dominance. What once seemed like a quiet finish for McLaren has transformed into an open battle, where every race, every point, and every mistake can determine the fate of the championship. This victory has also changed the atmosphere within Red Bull. The team, which just 2 months ago was torn between technical doubts and internal frustration, now breathes new energy. Laurent Mekies has managed to stabilize the structure, Pierre Watt has restored the car's aerodynamic balance, and Verstappen has once again led from the track, with authority and serenity. The next destination will be Mexico, a circuit historically favorable to Red Bull due to its altitude and aerodynamic characteristics. If Verstappen manages to replicate his dominance in Austin, the championship could take a decisive turn. The stage is set for an intense final stretch, with 3 teams at the highest level and a single objective in mind: world title glory. Every point counts, every detail matters, and every decision can change the course of history. And now it's your turn to have your say. Do you think Max Verstappen will manage to come back and win his 5th consecutive championship, or will McLaren withstand the pressure until the end? Leave me your answer in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.